Thank you so kindly. Here, I'll just share my stuff here if I can find it and do it correctly. There. What do you know? Every so often things work. So this is one of those things past district governor Norm asked me, Tom, can you do something a little bit different? Something that's not in our Lions resources and, something that you may have brought from your field with human resources and we could use as Lions. And I said, you know what? Funny enough, you should ask that because I was just looking at doing a presentation in my own multiple here about talking about how, a lot of our leadership training really links into Lions Quest training. So if you've ever been to a Lions Quest course, you can see the connection. So we are going to call this staying in your right mind as a leader, because I know from time to time as a leader, you get all nutsy because you got so many things on the go. And that might not be because you're poor at delegating. It may be just that there's a whack of stuff that you have to do as a leader. And so what we're going to really do is tie in some things about mindset, mindfulness, and emotional intelligence, and just try to put them in here. Manny is also going to put up in the chat room the list of resources that I've used lately. It's by no means a complete list, but if you want to take a look at that, maybe you could read into it a little bit more after what I'm saying. So where do we start? Well, we start here. Yeah. This is basically what we do as Lions. We serve. And I know that for all the people in the world who do Lions work, we serve. And there's an awful lot of us. And sometimes, and Jennifer was saying a little bit earlier that she finds that you can be a mentor without even knowing it. Sometimes just by being the leader of an activity, people are following you. Now, from my readings, I found that, people will serve along beside you if they have the same beliefs that you do. So we've managed to convince 1.4 million people around the world that we serve is what we should be doing. So I find that incredible all on its own. Our mission and our vision is what drives us. This is what gets us to the next step. If we don't have a clear view of where we're going to go, it's hard to keep that mindset. So if we know that basically what we do is we serve our communities, and our communities are totally different, doesn't matter where you are. And I don't know about calling them humanitarian needs because some of the needs aren't necessarily for people, they're for things. But we serve our community because we're trying to make our communities a better place to be. And certainly international understanding is a goal that everybody understands. And so that's our mission, and we'll be working on that forever. Our vision, some of the Lions in my district would say, well, we've completed this vision. We are the global leader in community and humanitarian service. But I have friends in Rotary and Kiwanis and optimists who would disagree with that. But I like to keep that as my mindset. I know that we're the best out there at doing these kinds of things. And so what I found is, for those of us who have managed to get into a leadership role, that there's many, many paths to here. And with forgiveness to past international President Yamada, I know that when I was trying to fold these origami cranes, it took me forever to learn how to do that. And so my path to get to a crane or something that looked like a crane was very difficult. And it didn't follow the direction that maybe somebody a little bit better with eye-hand coordination can do. But here I am, I finally got there. And I know that I got there in a weird way, and other people are going to get there in a weird way too. There's no one path. What I do know as the leader, though, is that you are a model, and you can't turn that off. If you have a position and you're the leader, you're a model. Wow. Okay. So now here's my question to everybody. What do you have to do to become a leader? Okay. I know my path was crooked and all over the place. I mean, it took me 25 years to become a district governor, and some people can do that in 4 or 5, but it took me 25 years to get that far. So I'm going to poll you guys. So Manny, we have a poll to put up now, or Norm, whoever's doing that. Can you put up the poll, please? And we'll see what you think about that. What do you have to do to become a leader? Okay, and those folks at home, you can vote. You can have a look. Is it learning skills? Is it making lots of friends? Being charismatic. Is it becoming a great speaker so that people hang on your every word? Is it becoming the great motivator? Or are you a kid? You were born to it. Wow, look at those results.
Tom, let me know when you'd like to close the poll.
Well, I was looking to get at least more than half. I guess we're at least more than half shortly. There's 224 people who could respond right now, and they're still coming in. I don't think it's going to change much, though. It's probably going to look pretty much the same.
I can let it go for a couple more seconds, or you just tell me when. No problem on our end.
Okay. All right. Looks like it's slowing down. So let's stop it now. Okay. And if we look to see what we've got so far, you can see 78% of those people listening today are saying, yeah, it's learning skills. As soon as you have the skills, you can become a leader. Yeah. Some people thought, hey, make lots of friends and they'll vote you in. And some people said, well, if you're a great speaker, people will hang on your every word. And so whatever you say, that's what they'll do. And then it says becoming a great motivator. And of course, that's what we want. We want our leaders to be great motivators. And then the last part, there's still 12% of people think, you're born to it. It's something natural. It's a genetic code thing. And so you can do it from your genetic code. And okay, thank you, Vanny. We can take it down. I would like to say that, you know, there's so many things that being a leader is, but there's a lot of things that being a leader is not. One of the things that we have to do with being in our leadership roles is that we want to take these skills that we've learned and we want to apply them to the people that we're working with. And so I've learned some things that leadership is not. One, you can't just blow your own horn. You know, you can say you're doing things great, and that's not going to do it for you. Two, you don't want to be monkeying around with this. Lions deserve the best leaders that they can get. You really want to have people out there who are dedicated to being a leader, and that's a conscious decision. It's not something that just gets handed to you. Although I know in some places we have people who are reluctant to lead. We have lots of people with the skills. In fact, I think everybody has the skills to be a leader. In fact, I think if you're just a lion, you're a leader. It's less than 1/100% of the population in North America belong to service clubs. And even less than that belong to Lions clubs. So, you know, because you joined a Lions club, you're a leader. And I think everybody has the potential to do that. Most of us get to be leaders because we did learn some skills. We had to learn some skills because we had to manage. And Lord knows you have to manage a lot now as a leader in Lions. There's lots going on. In terms of being a management skill, though, what you're looking at are things. We're not really looking at what makes a person a leader. We're looking at getting the task done. And if you check these out, you'll see there's a lot of things on here, and there's a lot of process on here, but it's missing an essential component. Actually, 3 essential components. Okay, did you notice my buddy Henry here, he didn't have his Lions pin on. He's going to get fined at the next meeting too, because I'm a manager as well as a leader. Okay, leadership skills. We talk about this. The focus here for leaders are their people. They're people. I mean, you can be a great speaker and you can motivate people to do things, but what are you motivating them to do? You know, people join Lions because they believe the same things you do, and they want to work in their communities. And that's how we get new members in our area. We go out and we do a service and people say, hey, we want to join you and do that kind of service. So they follow along with what you want to do, but you're really working with people. You're not working with things. Empowerment, we're going to come back to. For a leader, there's an investment, and there's an investment in time and in emotions. It's not just that you put in the time, but it's kind of difficult on you when things don't go the way that you exactly wanted them to go. And some of us will jump in and interrupt that. And some of us will have the emotional intelligence to sit back and say, no, somebody else is handling this task. I'll give them some feedback later. So it's different. It's different. Certainly we have to have direction. Certainly we want to be effective. We now have in our association, we have a code of ethics. And so it really teaches us, how we should be behaving while we're working as a lion. And, even though they're like more than 100 years old, those things on the code of ethics, they still hold true today. They haven't changed any at all. Our purposes have changed slightly because for a time we forgot that we really should be trying to build the association. And so, yeah, our purposes are there too. So there's a direction too, not necessarily our vision, but it's the vision of the association to give us those purposes. So now instead of doing things right, we're looking at doing the right things, okay? And you'll see Jennifer's got her fingers up here because there's three main mindsets that I would like you to look at. Here's the first one, autonomy. As a leader, we have our vision and we have people out there working towards that vision. Hopefully, we've managed to inspire them to do that. Now, the thing is, and I've done it myself, so I know sometimes we want to jump in because they aren't doing it the way we would have done it. They're doing things a little bit differently. And we'll shake our heads and say, no, you're doing that wrong. But, a lot of times if we let them go, it still works out just fine. If we give people a vision and we give them some instruction up front and we make sure that we know what the outcome should be, if we can lean back on that a little bit and let them work on that themselves and let them work through it. And sometimes, sometimes it blows up in our faces and we learn from that. I know in my life, I think I've learned more from the mistakes I've made from the things than from the things I've done correctly first time through. So it takes a little bit of practice to stand back and watch once we've given a vision. Okay. Second is mastery. Everybody wants to be good at something. Everybody. Look at the people who spent hours and hours learning how to play the guitar or the piano. They spend hours and hours in doing that. And why do they do that? Is it because it makes wonderful music for the rest of the world? Well, no, not necessarily. It's because it makes them feel better. It makes them get to that sense of mastery. Now we can lead that. And Jennifer's going to talk a little bit later about mentoring and how we help people do that. So I'm not going to go into that a whole bunch. But certainly everybody's looking to master something. But sometimes they don't recognize it. And that's when our people skills come in as a leader. That's when we say to people, do you know what I noticed you do in the meeting today? And you point out what it was that they were doing that made that meeting successful. It may not be the thing that you started off to look at for that meeting. It may have been something totally different. Okay, but basically what you know is that they've learned some skills and they will appreciate that. And then you can come back to them a little bit later when you need a new zone chair or a region chair or a second vice district governor and say, now remember when we were talking and we said that you were doing these things, this is just what a second vice district governor needs to have in order to be successful. And people will appreciate that. People will appreciate that. The next thing that we want to do for folks is to give them a purpose. Now we have a purpose because we have a mission and a vision from Lions International. But we also want to have a purpose for those people who are doing what they want to do. And people want to have a purpose. People want to accomplish something in their lives. They want to leave a legacy. And they want to look at why did they do this? And that's what's keeping in our right mind is about. How do we not get distracted about all the other things, all the minutiae of being a leader? Attending meetings, driving to the meetings, getting your technology correct so that you can attend a Zoom meeting. Doing all those kinds of things are things that sometimes get in our way of working on our purpose. So those are the three big things, three big mindsets. Remember, the followers need some autonomy. And sometimes, as leaders, it's funny that we assume everybody knows what we know. And if you know the old joke about assuming things, you know that that's probably going to get you in trouble. People really want to work on their own. And it's funny to see in industry now, and people that I used to work with, they're saying now that their companies are now giving people certain amounts of time, an afternoon, a day, to do whatever it is they want to do and to do it with whomever they want to do. So they make up their own teams to make the company better. No direction from the top. It's just free time to do something that relates to the purpose or the vision for the company. And so that can happen in Lions as well. And I know that Lions Virtual, I can still see the sign behind Jody's head over there. Lions Virtual were a group of Lions who said, this is what Lions need right now. There's no direction from Lions International to do that. They just took it upon themselves to set that up and do that. And it's been very, very successful all over the world. And Lions Virtual is not the only group that's doing that. It's happening all over the place. It's happening here with past District Governor Norm and Manny. And yeah, so and Liz when she's around too. So all of that thing is happening because people took it upon themselves to do it. And that autonomy thing is still working towards our vision, but they've taken it upon themselves. The other thing about mastery is that now you got some success. You have to realize your own success. And this is hard for people to say, yeah, I was successful at this. So I did say earlier that you shouldn't be blowing your own horn, at least not to other people. But you should be letting yourself know what things you've accomplished. What have I done well? Because I want to use that. I can't really work from my weaknesses. I can only work from strengths. So if you've ever done a SWOT analysis with your club, and looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, if you've ever done one of those things, you know that you're going to have some weaknesses in there. But you can't work from weaknesses. You have to work from strength. You do have to recognize your weaknesses, though. So you have to acknowledge those things that you don't do well. You really have to know yourself to stay in your right mind as a leader. And you're going to have a purpose. And not everybody has the full purpose of Lions International. Some people have little parts of the purpose. And that's why we have specialty clubs now. They've decided that they want to focus on one special area. And so they work on that one area and their purpose comes out to this one. Now, I can't remember if Jenny was with us or not when we went to see in San Diego, we went to see the Lions down there, who's a specialty club, and their specialty club is Special Olympics. And they were doing a baseball tournament, softball tournament, actually, a softball tournament with Special Olympic athletes. And it was the most wonderful thing you've ever seen. It was a huge production. And those Special Olympians really had a great time. It's just make your heart melt to see them cheer themselves and do things well and be really happy about it, and not do things well and still be happy about it, which is amazing for the rest of us. So I would say keep these three mindsets in roll. Allow that autonomy to happen. Allow people to get to mastery. And Jenny's going to talk about mentoring, about that in a little bit. And talk about purpose. And I know Brian's going to extend purpose because you're going to talk about, how do we succeed going down the road? How do we get the next leaders in here? And that's part of our purpose too. That's one of the first purposes that we have right now, is to grow clubs and to make sure the association grows. And so that's, those three mindsets will help you. Try to keep you in your right mind so you don't get nuts. So when people ask me, they say, well, how do you stay in your right mind as a leader? And I say, well, the first thing I have to do is decide to do that. Some people don't. They just sort of waft through life and they say, oh, yeah, the next thing for me to do is to be zone chair because I've been club president, so I'll go do that. I think you need to decide. If you really want to be a leader and not a manager, you really have to decide to take on that role. And you have to decide that at some point, this is going to bring you some disappointment. It's not going to go the way that you like it. And you're going to have to dig deep, work on your value system and find out a way out of this, use all your skills and other people's skills. And that's really the key, is to be able to use other people's skills to do this. When you decide to be a leader, find yourself some mentors. Okay, I have mentors on the screen. I saw their names pop up. Some of them, they know they're my mentors and some of them do not. But they have worked with me to develop me. And that's great for me to know that they did that. And I would like to acknowledge that at some point too. Okay. The next thing we need to do is know our association. And as you go to different positions in the association, it gets bigger in your picture. In your club, you see what you're doing in your club, but it gets bigger. I'd like to show you that if I could. Here's our association. Oh my God. I maybe jumped the gun here. I know that we don't officially have 8 constitutional areas yet, not till after the convention, and we voted on it. But after the convention, we'll probably have 8 constitutional areas. We're all over the world. And I found, when I tell people that, they say, you have Lions clubs everywhere? And I say, well, almost everywhere. You see, there's some white spaces in there where we don't. But yeah, we have Lions clubs everywhere around the world. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's huge. And we need to know the steps that we get to get there. We need to know what constitutional area you're in. I worked that out with one of my clubs one time, and they say, well, what constitutional area we're in? And they said, Canada. I said, you're right. What number is that? I don't know. Does it matter? No, doesn't matter that you know what number it is. Who cares? You need to know what constitutional area you're in. That's all, and that's one of those things that just comes up at different meetings. The other thing is people don't know what zone or region they're in too. I find that disturbing sometimes, but that's my managerial side taking over. The leadership side would say, it doesn't matter. Are you doing the work? Are you having fun? Are you making a difference? That's what matters. Okay, be aware of motivations and leadership styles, and motivations come from everywhere. And some of the stuff that I've put in my resources handout for you will be, basically looking at motivational theories. And there's always a leadership style that goes with the motivational theories. And I'll just pop a few here. So here's a few. I think those of us who took psychology courses anytime after 1930 know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how that works for us. And these other motivational theories are ones that have come along during the way. And some of them are actually used in our institutes to talk about motivation and then what the leaders should do within our association to reflect those motivational theories. The latest one that I've looked at is Hogan's social analytic theory. And I think right about today, that one makes the most sense to me, but you'll have to discover that for yourself. Stay within yourself. Now, being somewhat of an athlete, I did get paid for a little while to be an athlete, a very short time, but when you're doing this, there's a saying among athletes, don't try to do more than you're able to do. That's why you have to know yourself. Don't try to be Brian Sheehan if you're not Brian Sheehan. Brian Sheehan's going to do that, and they don't need two of them, and don't try to be Tom Gordon or Jenny Ware. Be you. That's what you have to do. And I have this little clip here, and I thought this really did it for me.
Yeah, I mean, precision for me, like I said, if I'm obviously one of the shorter hitters on tour. Short and straight, you can still compete. Short and crooked, you can't. No. So when I try to do things that I can't do, is when I get in trouble. Yeah. If I just stay within myself, and you know what, even if I do miss hit a drive, if it goes 260, if it's in the fairway, I'm going to have a hybrid, maybe a 5-iron, and you're not fine. And you're not worried about that either. That's fine. We'll hit it on the green, and make a 30-footer. It's just. Yeah. I can play any golf course, no matter the length from the fairway. Yeah. It doesn't matter what club you're. Yeah, of course, the longer guys have an advantage on those long courses. But it makes sense why you played so well this year at the Players Championship, because I was lucky enough to play well at that tournament, and it was all about the fairway. Yeah. See, and that's the deal. That's why, a lot of the long guys complain about players because they don't ever get to hit driver. Yeah. But for me, I hit driver. I'm playing from the same spot Dustin is on pretty much every hole. Yeah. BJ Singh never won there. Any else ever won there. Yeah. Tiger's only won, I think, twice there. My whole deal around there is, I think if you put me at the same spot as Jason Day and Dustin, I can compete. I mean, they're going to beat me some, but I feel like I can compete as well. If you're going to play those guys from the fairway with these clubs, yeah, you're you look at a hole like 18 where Jason Day and them are hitting 2-iron off. See, I'm still hitting driver, and they're 2 irons right next to my driver. Yeah, and so we're going at it from the same place. The par fives, yeah, they have a little bit of an advantage, but for the most part, they're hitting 3 within 2 irons off holes, and I'm still hitting driver every hole. But over the course of the week.
Okay. Yeah. So if you're into golf, you know what he's talking about. I can hit a ball a long way with a driver, but I have no idea where it's going. So I'm better to use a 4 or 5-iron and keep it on the drive, just so I can get to where I want to go with the next one. Okay. The next thing for you to do is a skill thing, really, is to learn the steps. So what are the steps in your district? What are the steps at international? What are the steps to become leaders? And what's involved in those steps too? So let's look at this for a second. So here you are, and there's your club, your zone, your region, your district, your multiple district, your constitution. There in Lions International. There's all those places where you can practice and learn all the things you need to learn for you to be a leader. So at the club level, there's all the administrative positions, up to the president, and there's all the committees, there's all the activities that you do. When you go to the zone, you're looking at a number of clubs now, probably somewhere between 4 and 8 clubs. When you go to the region, you're looking at, anywhere between 8 and 10 clubs. Now that looking at your district, there's still, cabinet positions in your district. And, you don't have to be a zone chair or region chair. You could be a cabinet chair. There's all those things, same at the multiple district level. And so when you become district governor, you get a chance to serve at the multiple district too. And there are committees at the multiple district. And like most multiple districts, the one I'm in, not necessarily do you have to be a past district governor to be a chairperson at the multiple district. And then the constitutional area, if you're like Brian, Jenny, and myself, we got to represent our constitutional areas as an international director. But there are other committees as well. And there from time to time, you're asked to do other things for the association. So there are lots of chances to learn to be a leader and to practice that out and to find other people who you can model yourself for. And so here's some. Okay, those are some positions, not the only positions, but some. And that'll give you a chance to look at, where you want to go now. I have a district governor-elect right now who's big on saying, if you don't plan, then you plan to fail. So plan yourself out. Where do you want to be in a certain year's time? What do you have to learn to be there? What skills do you have to get? You still need to get skills, but it's not the only thing. You really need to work with your people. It's a lot based on relationships here. When you're the club president, if you have a good relationship with the other presidents in your zone, then you stand a good chance of being elected zone chair. And then the same on up through the line. Become an expert. Well, you don't have to become an expert in everything because you can't. There's too much in Lions International to try and become an expert in. There's just way, way too much to do that. I was lucky. I became an expert in Lions Quest. And that's because at my Lions meeting, when I was a Lion for 3 years, the Lions president came to me and said, you've been a teacher, right? And I said, yes. And he said, good, here's your stuff. And they gave me some stuff from Quest International. It wasn't Lions Quest at the time. It was Quest International Center. And he gave me the stuff. And I said, this looks great. Teachers would love this stuff. And so from there, I became an expert in that because I went to the person heading this up in Canada and I said, well, this is pretty good. So can I use this stuff? And he said, no, you have to go to training. I said, well, how do I do that? And he says, well, you know what? I know where there's going to be a training next month. You can go to training. And then the person said, when I got there, I said, this is great. How do I get a training in my district? And I went to the person heading it up in Canada. That was past International Director Bill Moody. And he said, you know what? I don't know exactly, but here's a phone number. And you can phone this person. And we'll see if we can get a workshop up here in Canada. Because I had to go all the way to Albion, Michigan from my house, which was an 8.5-hour drive. Not a big deal in Canada to drive 8.5 hours, but it wasn't around the corner either. And so we learned how to use the program in our classrooms, and we went back and used them in our classrooms. And then from there, it became, well, let's have a workshop up here. How do we get a trainer up here to do the workshop? And Bill Moody said, I don't know, but here's a phone number, and you can call that phone number. And I called that phone number. And notice he's being a manager here. He's giving me information, but I have to act on it. And so I called and they said, yeah, we'll send you somebody from Wyoming, Cindy Castagna, and she'll come up and do a training for you. When the training was over, as Canadians often do, the people being trained said, how come we don't have a Canadian trainer? And I said, I don't know. And I asked Bill Moody and he said, what are you doing in July? And so I became a trainer. And then as I became a trainer, then I had to train other trainers. It just goes on. So if you pick an area where you have an interest, and this is where you really have to know yourself, you become an expert in that area. And because you become an expert in that area, you can now share your expertise with other people. And sharing your expertise with other people is not exactly the same as mentoring, is it, Jenny? But it's a way to lead other people and show them your vision. And they'll jump on board with you if they think that matches their beliefs and their vision and their value system. So it takes some time to get there. But where do you need to be an expert? Well, here's 5 areas you can look at, And we have specialty clubs, funny enough, in each of those areas too. And we've been doing vision a long time. And at least where I'm from, we're certainly known for eyeglasses and eyeglass recycling. That's a big thing for us here. and for doing some vision screening at this point too. So we're known for that in our community. But there are other things that we do that maybe don't get some notice, and childhood cancer and our work with diabetes are brand new. So there's a spot, to look for you becoming an expert and then being able to share that information with those other folks. Okay, now that being said, there's a path for you. You have to pick your own path. Okay, you've got your path. The next thing I'd like to say is you really have to get tech savvy these days. You have to know how to use your Lions account. And it's not that difficult to use once you get in it, but a lot of people have this technology fear. I don't know why they don't want to try this out. And there's even practice sessions on here. So you can mess with this, you can mess with it and it doesn't cause any effect. It doesn't change anything. And this was our statement from our club way back. Gosh, I don't know, because I just copied this slide from another presentation. I can't remember how long ago it was. This is our presentation from this year. And you'll see that we've done so much services and stuff, but there's 6 parts to this now. So the MyLion part really is your administration part. And this is really the managerial part of the site for us. And so up here in MyLion, if you click on that, it will take you to all the information about clubs, their officers, their members, depending on what position you have, how much of that information you're able to access. And if you click on my LCI, sorry, that's my LCI. I got ahead of myself. That's my LCI. This is our administrative part. MyLion is this part right down here. And MyLion is really our connection to other Lions. And I know when this first came in, we thought this was going to be a Facebook for Lions. It didn't quite work out to be that, but it really is a pretty cool device for getting in touch with what's happening around the world. And this part, when they added insights, I thought, okay, here's the managerial part. Okay, here's the skills part. This will show you data. So here's where the data is. So if you need to take people to the data for how their district is doing, this is where the data is right here. The Learn session, I believe there's now 47 courses in 14 different languages for you to learn different things, positional stuff. If you want to be a club secretary, there's a path to be a club secretary. There's a path to be a zone chair, and you can learn those skills that will help you in that position. It doesn't mean you didn't have the skills before. It just means that they're there and they can be reinforced. So again, not the same, not the same as membership or mentorship, but it's exactly the same thing as learning those skills that you need to learn to progress. Shop if you need Lions gear. Got all the Lions gear in the world you could possibly have over there. I have a whole closet full of Lions gear. I have shirts and vests and hats, and it goes on and on and on. When we have a new member, they say, I don't have a new shirt. I say, oh, it's no problem. I can lend you one. It might not even be from my club, but I have one. What is new, and you'll notice it says beta over here, and we're just starting to play with this now, is this is really our Zoom connection. And I tried this out with third International Vice President Patty Hill a couple of weeks ago, and it seemed to work okay for the two of us. I've tried it out with a number of people now, and it works with some people and it doesn't work with other people. I don't know if it has to do with systems or not, but we're still in beta with that. But that looks like that's going to save our clubs a lot of money if we can't meet in person, if we continue to meet virtually, that we can do it over this Connect feature here. So that's something that I think as a leader in Lions today that you really have to be pretty comfortable with. You also have to be comfortable with putting that data in. And again, there's some instruction on the site to help you do that. Okay, once you're a leader, you should poke around and have a look. Look at clubs' websites. Okay, this is our club website over here. And you can't see it now, but these birds actually fly and the lion actually roars. It's kind of cool. But it doesn't have to be that complicated for your website. It really does not. And clubs have Facebook sites too, and you can find out what other clubs are doing. And you can contact them now too, through MyLion. You go back and contact that club and see if they'll give you some information on what they're doing. Those of us who have certain leadership positions do get this, the club health assessments. And it really does give us some indication about how clubs are going. So if you're trying to learn your district or learn your multiple district in that case, then basically this club health assignment will give you a good look at how clubs are doing within your district or within your multiple district. And you'll find out a lot of things about them. Are they growing? Are they shrinking? Are they reporting their service activities? I think if Brian can correct me on this now, I think around the world, it's about 47% of Lions clubs are actually doing the reporting. So maybe that's something we look at right away. And that's because mainly a lot of people aren't good with that technology yet. So you learn that technology first. Look at president's rotation. There are clubs I've seen looking at this report where they've had the same president for 10 years. Not healthy. It's not healthy. We really need to have somebody rotating into that position. They might not have to rotate in every year, but they certainly need to rotate in and out of that position. I know now that when you look at running for second vice district governor, you can't have been a governor before, although governors have done that up until now, because we've recognized that that's just not healthy for the association. And then you look at club status over here. And club status is, are they behind on basically their dues and maybe some things that they've charged to Lions International are behind on that. Where that becomes critical was in the last couple of months when people had to vote in their districts. If they were behind, they couldn't vote. So that's a good indication for that thing. This is learning something about your association. The other thing that's here, but isn't mentioned in my list right here, is that down this row here is it shows you which clubs have donated and how much to our foundation. Now we just had two. In January we had a Melvin Jones fellowship evening where we gave out Miller Jones fellowships in constitutional areas 1 and 2. That's Canada and United States for those people who don't know the numbers. And basically it was a chance to recognize those people for their humanitarian service. Some of those people were Lions and some of them were not, which is interesting to know that we can actually do that. And down here, you can take a look at this. If you're the LCIF chairperson for your district or multiple district or in your club, you can see how other clubs are doing over here and how much they have to donate. If you're looking to get club excellence or a district excellence award for your district or your club, then you have to have a donation over here. There has to be one. So it's something, it's a managerial skill for sure, but it's something that you want to make sure that to pass on to other people. So how do you do this? How do you become a leader? Well, you practice. First you practice, and practice means you're going to make mistakes. Live with them, learn from them. Just try not to make the same mistake again. Try to find somebody else who did it correctly. Jenny's shaking her head over here because she and I know we have both made lots of mistakes as we go along. Jody's doing it too now. Yeah, we all make mistakes. It's great, acknowledge it. Just you acknowledge it in front of the other folks that you work with is one of those things that's a leadership skill. That's one of those social emotional things that we learn along the way. And it's also emotional intelligence stuff. And what do you do after practice? Well, you learn something new and you practice again. You incorporate your new stuff, you practice again. And what do you do after you practice the second time? Well, you learn something new and you practice again. And if at the end you still don't have it, what do? You cheat. What you do is you steal ideas from other people. You find out what worked for them and you just steal them and you use them. Now this slide looks pretty cool, but I stole this slide because I thought it would be perfect. No irony intended. It would just be perfect that I stole this slide from somebody else's presentation. So yeah, you cheat. If you're going to give a speech, you have notes. You have notes. Everybody appreciates that you have notes. Try not to read the notes, of course, but you have notes in case you get lost, because in your interaction with other people, sometimes if you're a good leader, you're really trying to take care of the people and you forget to where you are in your presentation. So make sure that you have some notes to do that. That's cheating in a sense, but it's also just a good practice. Now, I said earlier that I was surprised, about how much this fit into Lions Quest. And I've been doing Lions Quest again since 1985. First, I did it as a teacher and then as a trainer and then as a trainer. And then I started to write some of the curriculum and I'm still working on it today. Here's the program units. So it doesn't matter what grade you're at. The 6 units are the same. So if you're working in a kindergarten class, or you don't even have to be working in a school. You might be working with a Sunday school, with a boys or girls association, 4-H, All those kinds of places are using this right now. A lot of Leo clubs are using this material now to work as part of their Leo program. The 6 units are the same, you know, and if you look at it, what are we trying to do as leaders? Well, we're trying to establish a learning community, you know. Jenny will tell you, you know, if you don't have a learning community, it's hard to mentor. People won't take that. You know, if you're looking at personal development as a leader, well, of course you are. That's the only way you grow. And that's what other people are looking for. They're looking to grow as well. Social development, you're not in a vacuum. You're working with people and you have to have those skills. You know, health and prevention. My doctor just told me that you could do a little bit more on your health because recently I had a little episode because I didn't take care of myself. And you should take care of yourself a little bit better too. You're no use to anybody if you're in the hospital. And then, of course, leadership and service. When you talk about service learning, but basically it's leadership. We're teaching these kids to be leaders. Isn't that cool? And the service learning component is we're teaching them to be lions. So we're teaching them to be leaders and lions. Right in our Lions Quest programs. And of course, at the end, you really have to personalize this. You have to look at how this fits you. So there has to be some reflection and closure. So when you're looking at social emotional intelligence and you're looking at emotional intelligence a little bit later, what you'll see is there are some components. Now, this is from CASEL, which is an association in the United States that it really is the leader in social emotional intelligence. And they're really looking at what the things that you have to do. So you have to be able to identify your own emotions. You have to have some idea of who you are, and you have to recognize your strength. And if you can do that, your strengths will give you that self-confidence. And that's what we try to do with kids, but that's what we should be trying to do with our members as well. Once we have those skills, and notice there is sort of a progression. If you don't have the other skills, it's difficult to get to these. So impulse control is a big thing. So those of us with attention deficit know that we go off, and it's a poor term, attention deficit. The problem with those of us who have ADD is that we attend everything, not just one thing, you know, and that impulse control will take you off course. Stress management, more important today. You know that kids and adults are having some difficulty with their stress management. There's some mental health issues coming up, and Lions Quest at the international level is taking a look at how they can incorporate some of those mental health strategies into the program too. And then self-motivation, because that's the only kind of motivation there is. You can't motivate somebody else unless they want to be motivated. Now, you can create the situation where that happens, but you cannot motivate somebody else. Perseverance, for those people who are very, very successful, Bill Gates and those guys, they'll tell you, perseverance is the big thing. You know, stick with it, stick with it, stick with it. It may not happen right away. You may have to wait some time, but perseverance is the big thing. To go with that, goal setting. Goal setting is a big deal. Can you imagine now we're teaching kids in kindergarten to set some goals, you know, and if you've ever worked with, 4 or 5-year-olds and you say, do you have any goals? Well, they'll say, no, I don't have any goals, but you know what I like to do? Well, son of a gun, they have a goal, you know, and then organizational skills. My wife says I could use some more of that, but anyway, organizational skills are those kinds of things that are managerial things, right? And then you need to be aware of the people around you. You have to be able to get to the point where you have empathy. Again, empathy isn't something you can give people. You have to practice this one. You have to be out there and look at how people are feeling and look at what they're doing and try to identify that, you know, and sometimes you have to check it out because you don't know. You know, if you ask somebody how they're doing, they'll say, oh, I'm doing fine. You know, and I say, no, but really, how are you doing? And then you might get some more information out of that one. Appreciating diversity is the big deal for us for today, for sure, because our world and our association is becoming more diverse. You know, how can we have clubs in 200 countries and people don't know about diversity? I mean, we should know about that, right? Okay, and that includes, you know, when you appreciate diversity, I think that's respect for others. But, you know, it might be people that are come from the same grouping, however you group people that you do. And then responsible decision making. I always found this to be cool that at the end of the program, and now we're going to come back and talk about some responsible decision making, because everybody makes decisions. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. You have to learn from the ones that were not good decisions, and you have to use those ones that were good decisions to build your strengths. So certainly there's some skills here in doing that. And one of the things about the decision-making process, I look from the, what country I'm in, process, one or the other. Anyway, when you're looking at the process of making decisions, you know, what do 4 and 5 year olds know? Well, they need to think before they choose something. You know, so it's only a 2-step process. When they get into high school, yeah, now we have a whole bunch of steps to that process, and the end step being, okay, let's reflect back on that now. And that's what we should be doing in our clubs too. When you finished a project, you know, think back on that project. How did it go? What could have made it better? Ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. And, you know, are you a leader or are you a manager? A manager would say, well, we never do things like that before. Why would we do that like now? And the leader would say, that didn't go the way we wanted. It did it. How can we make that better? Okay. And it's a question. Notice it's a question, not a statement. Okay. Okay. Relationship skills are the biggest part of being a leader. Okay. Certainly you need to be able to use your words. Certainly you need to be able to work in a group with people, because that's basically what leading is. You have to work with a group. If you think you're the leader and you turn around behind you and there's nobody following, you ain't a leader. You need to have people following. Okay. So then you have to build those relationships. You know, when you talk to people and you say, how are you doing today? And they say, well, the project messed up last week. Now I said, how are you doing today? You know, how's your brother? I heard that he broke his leg. Is it healing? You know, those kinds of things are things you have to do to build relationships. Certainly to work cooperatively, you need those little hooks, you know, to get in there to be able to start conversations. And then resolving conflicts. Hopefully in our Lions clubs, we don't have too many of those, but we do have conflicts from time to time. And you need to be able to do that as a leader. You have to help people resolve their conflicts. You can't resolve their conflicts for them, but you can help them to resolve their conflicts. Hopefully they can get to a win-win situation. Doesn't always work out that way. And I found I get called in to do this a lot within my district to resolve conflicts. And I found that going back to the code of ethics works very, very well for me. I can just say, well, how does this fit into the code of ethics? You know, say what your position is. How does that fit the code of ethics? Say what your position is. How does that fit the code of ethics? And somehow we find a middle ground someplace. It's amazing. Okay, that's all I got to say. Thank you for being here today. And stick around because Jenny's coming up and International Vice President Brian's coming up. And tell the people who weren't here today that they could have been. Okay. Thank you, Norm. Back to you, bud.
Outstanding. Let's give PID Tom Gordon a round of